Thank you for attending our workshop, Parenting in the Time of COVID, where we're going to try and help everyone to gain some insight on how to help your children cope with this current pandemic, to try and give you some positive reinforcement strategies to help with positive reinforcement rather than discipline, as well as how you can give yourself some self-care and de-stressing so that you can avoid going crazy right now. My name is Tara Daniels. I am a student assistant at the WGEC Center. I was also a preschool and kindergarten teacher for 12 years, as well as a parent of a young boy who is 9 years old. I hope that you guys gain the confidence in being able to deal with distance learning as well. And yeah, I'm going to move it to Pilar.
Hello, everybody. My name is Pilar Caceres. I am the Commissioner for Pregnant and Parenting Students in Cal State Long Beach. I have 2 kids. Well, I'm intern on WGEC too. I have 2 kids. I have a 7-year-old girl and a 4-year-old boy. As a commissioner, I'm part of the meetings. There's 2 more important resources for pregnant and parenting students, that is Speech Parents and Pregnant and Parent Student Association.
And my name is Emily Hauk. I'm one of the doctoral interns at Counseling and Psychological Services. So in my role there, I act as a therapist in individual and group settings and get to do workshops like the one we're doing this evening. So I'm really excited to be here. And before we move forward with the presentation, I do want to offer a quick caveat and let you all know that multiple presenters tonight are mandated reporters under California law.
So let's get started. At this time, we wish to acknowledge the Tongva people as the traditional land caretakers of the Los Angeles Basin and Southern Channel Islands, and are grateful to have the opportunity to work at the sacred Pavugna. We pay our respect to the ancestors, elders, and our relatives' relations past, present, and emerging. Go Beach! So to start this off, I want everyone to get into this mindset. I want you guys to think, and then if you can, post in the chat some events, moments that you and your children may have missed during this pandemic, and give me some of how you felt. I'll give you guys a minute.
Yolanda said my child's dance performance. Yeah.
That one's tough. So socializing with friends in general. I agree. Mine was, I graduated from Long Beach City College last year, and I missed my graduation, something I'd worked for a long time. Starting high school, and a graduation as well. I felt miserable and felt horrible for myself because I worked so hard and I missed this. But also, if we're feeling these feelings, I want you to also remember that your children are having to cope with missing out on their events too. It could be as minimal as a school event, like my son is missing out on his 3rd grade reading in a tent, and he is devastated about it. He gets to read to a kindergartner in a tent, and he doesn't get to do that this year. And that was the one thing he was really excited about. So while we are coping with these changes, so are our children. the thing about children is they don't have the ability to understand these complex feelings that they are having. We have to give them the words. We have to give them what they're feeling and have understanding and guide them through this. Now, I found this great video that I would like to play for you guys. Oh, if I can. Okay, give me a second. Technical difficulties.
No problem. Linda just added to her son misses playing sports and going to sporting events as well. There's
Yeah,
so many live events that we're all missing out on.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for a second so that I could get the video queued up. For some reason, it's not playing. Yeah, a lot of our children are missing their sports events. You know, I know some of our children and maybe even our partners are missing their sporting events as well.
And while you pull that up, Tara, I wanted to add it can be so hard because it's not just the memory or the opportunity that's being missed out on, but so often kids, part of their identity or understanding themselves is around their friends and different activities they get to do. So it's layered.
From the perspective of the child, she or he is missing all the social skills that they need right now. So they are just like knowing their new students and knowing the new classmates by a computer is not normal for them. So I think that they are missing a lot of things. From the parent perspective, on my opinion, it was the first year that I would send my son to a TK class, you know, with the uniform and anything. I was so excited to do that, and we couldn't do it. So it's very hard. And I say, okay, but we are healthy and we are together. Sorry, go Tara.
It's okay. Thank you so much for jumping in. I appreciate it. So to discuss coping through this challenging time, I found this great video. Let's see if it go. Can you guys hear it? Awesome. Thank you for bearing with me.
Depending on their age, their response may vary. Some may become overly attached, while others may withdraw. Some may become anxious, angry, or agitated, and others may even start wetting the bed. Here are 5 tips to help manage stress in children. Play. Encourage children to play and suggest activities to help them relax. Bond. Try to keep children close to their parents, caregivers, or family members. If separation is necessary due to hospitalization, quarantine, or isolation, try to ensure regular contact via telephone or any other available means. Routine. Establish a daily routine or schedule and stick to it as much as possible, especially in the house. Create a routine in which they can participate in household activities, but also provide enough time to play and rest. Talk to them. Explain what's happening and provide clear information on how to reduce the risk of being infected by the disease. Be clear. Use words and phrases that are easily understood and age-appropriate. Calmly explain what could happen if your child or a family member begins feeling unwell. Let them know they may require medical attention or even hospitalization to make sure they recover. Remember, listen to their concerns, show them your support, and be there to reassure them. Bear in mind, this is also a difficult time for them and that they'll need the extra love and attention. For more information, please visit the Pan American Health Organization's website, www.paho.org/coronavirus.
So how are your children coping? Right now, a lot of children are struggling with their emotions. And this is making things difficult for them. They went from a routine of having breakfast, going to school, coming home, doing their homework, having parent time, going to bed. having friends to not having a routine or a scheduled routine that they are used to, not seeing their friends, and barely having contact with friends and family. This may lead them to feel disappointed, confused, and lonely. What we can do to help is to create and continue routines throughout this time, because children, they thrive on these routines. When they know what is expected and what's expected of them, this can help them to cope and master the challenges of the day. This can also help you, because if they are able to maintain these routines, know what's happening, they're not going to need you as much as if you didn't have a routine. They wouldn't be asking, mom, hey, mom, what do I do now? What do I do now? I'm bored. If you have a routine, they know what to expect. But another positive is routines make them feel safe and secure. Now, leading into this, the other thing that we want to discuss is the importance of communication. As I explained earlier, the children are having issues with being able to verbalize what they are feeling. This is where our role as parents comes into play. We have to help these children to communicate and understand the feelings that they're having. Most of these children have not experienced a global pandemic. Actually, none of them have. We haven't even. And so it is our job to help them to gain these skills. Now, the first step in communication, and the main step, is for us, active listening. And how we can go about active listening is by giving your full attention to your child. Even if you're doing, working, making dinner, that sort of thing. If they really need to talk to you, try and make the time to give them that one-on-one. The other thing a lot of people don't realize is eye contact is imperative. Getting down on their level. If you get down on a child's level, giving them eye contact, you become this big, scary, strange, scary person. Even if you're their mom who gives them, what they have to do and what they need to do, to someone on their level being able to, communicate and being able to talk to. They don't have, right now, a lot of them don't have the friends that they would have that are on their level to speak to them. So if you can get on their level, get on your knees, get on, sit on the couch and be able to give them that one-on-one communication, that would be very beneficial to them. Also, if you are able to reflect back what they are saying, Mom, I'm struggling, Mom, I don't know how I feel. Mom, this pandemic is scary. I understand, Joey. This pandemic is scary to me too. What can we do to help alleviate that? Why don't we draw in a coloring book? Why don't we do some activities together and help them to alleviate? While you're doing those activities, you could have a discussion with them about what this pandemic is, what is making them scared. They're missing their friends. They have all these events that they're missing, these, things that they were excited about, 5th grade graduation, middle school graduation, even a high schooler. Get on their level. You can talk to them as an adult. Do not baby talk them, but talk to them as an adult. I understand what you're feeling. How can I help? Make sure that they feel like they're being heard. And when you go to reflect and summarize with these children about the communication that you are having with them, you're showing them that you are there for them. When you're engaged, when you're actively listening and learning what they're saying, you're reinforcing your child's ability to say, hey, my mom actually listens to me. My dad actually listens to me. My parental figure actually listens to me. you know, and if they can't verbalize what they're trying to say, you are allowed to guess. Are you feeling sad? Are you feeling angry? These are valid feelings. I feel that way too. I feel that way when, and also understand that sometimes words are not needed. Sometimes a child just needs a hug, a love, someone to listen to them, just like we do. And you don't always have to agree. If the child says, I hate this pandemic because I have to be home all the time, and you don't agree, you know, I love being home with you all the time. That's okay. You're validating their feelings. You could talk about other people's feelings. You could say, you know, your sister Susie is having the same feelings. Your sister Susie feels this way. It gives them that space to be able to provide that communication to you. And don't worry about getting it wrong. We're parents. We're not perfect. If while you're communicating with your child and you say, are you feeling sad? And they go, no, I'm feeling angry. That's okay. That gives them the opening to validate their feelings to you and to communicate what their needs are. Okay. And in that respect, I'm going to pass it on to Pilar.
Thank you.
And Pilar is going to be discussing positive reinforcement skills and how to curb challenging behaviors.
Oh, sorry. Can you see it? Yes?
Yes, Pilar?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
So thank you, Tara, for all of that information. So how we are going to help our children to create big routines and to communicate effectively or active listening. We have to understand what is a behavior. So what is a behavior? It can be anything that affect its environment. It's what individuals do is called action. So every action, every effect that we have, that action, it will have a consequence. It could be positive, it could be negative, whatever we are reinforcing right moment. So any behavior is composed of an action and a consequence. So what is behaviors? As always want to communicate something. However, there are some actions that you can see, like for example, tantrums, screams, crying, aggressivity. Maybe they can do more things that they are very creative, the kids. And there are a lot of things that we don't see, like lack of social skills. Maybe they need something like a basic need, like water or something, but they don't know how to communicate that. Security, they feel insecure. They are lacking of attachment with the parent. It could be different thoughts, imagination. It could be self-esteem, hunger, attention, tired. It could be a lot of things that we don't see. So we have to be very, very observant with our kids. At the end, the parents are the experts of the children. So what is a challenging behavior? Any repeated behavior that interferes with learning or engage in pro-social interaction with peers or adults or any other person. So prolonged tantrums is a challenging behavior. That means that a behavior can be, that tantrum can be more than 30 minutes is a challenging behavior. If the child is doing a tantrum for 10, 15 minutes, it is normal. It's called just a behavior. It could be in the screaming, it could be a withdrawal. It also includes the physical and verbal aggressions, self-injury, disruptive vocal and moral behavior. It could be just crossing the line of a behavior could be. So what is the difference between a positive discipline versus punishment? The positive discipline reinforces the good behaviors by praising them with attention, but ignoring the bad behaviors, not. We have to ignore the behaviors of the child, not the child. So that's a very tricky thing to see. So we have to avoid hurting our children, avoid making judgments, so we don't have to ignore the problem. The problem that we have as a parent is like I always want to stop the behavior, whatever it is. So the perception is from the parents and not from the child. So we have to address, involve in teaching children how to handle situations. The parent, I put a note that say the parent has to be calm, friendly, and respectful. That means that you need to respect your child. As Tara said, you need to be on the level of the child. That doesn't mean that you are less than the child or more than the child. You are trying to communicate appropriately. So what is a punishment? The punishment, as I said, the parent just want to stop the behavior, whatever it takes. It could include fear, suffering, and the child is the bad, not the behavior. They concentrate on the child, and that's punishment. So we have to, if you do a punishment all the time, you're fostering the behavior will continue. The parent will feel responsible after giving the punishment, and the kid will become rebellion, revenge, or many other things that it could be related to punishment. As a consequence, the child will be rebellion, revenge, dishonesty, and it will be a disconnection with the parents. So the behavior is reinforced. More likely, it will never change. The idea of to get rid of punishment is to make the child behave better the next time, not only to stop the challenging behavior. So what is the content? So as I said, positive discipline will emphasize the wrong behavior, not the child. It will give the ownership of the problem. We have to talk about what is happening. What are the actions and what will be the consequence? We can solve the problems together, and it would end with dignity and respectful for both of them. A punishment is always, like I said, is all adult oriented. So if you want to stop that behavior, you want the child to stop crying. You make a lot of judgment. You're a child, you're crying for nothing, like always we try to do when we are mad or angry. So we are fostering anger and resentment. We are going to enter into a conflict mode. The kids scream, I scream. The kids hit, I hit. And this will discourage the children because he's not learning how to deal with that emotion of anger, for example. So he only will learn to stop. So that's not our case. So what is an example? I put Andrea and Esteban have been arguing over color pencil all afternoon. Esteban pushes Andrea and start fighting. So if we go to the side of punishment, the parent will say, both of you stop it. You are not allowed to go outside today. That's a punishment. You are getting rid of something that they like, and it don't have any sense that what's happening with the pencil. It doesn't have any sense. But you stop the behavior. Yeah, the behavior is stopped because both of them now are angry because they are not allowed to go outside. But you are not teaching the skills they need to apply when this situation happens again. So what we do, we are gonna go in the middle of the two kids and the two child, give the colored pencil. I can see that both of you cannot share right now, so neither of you can use them right now. The consequence is the kid were fighting because of the pencil, the colored pencils, and I'm taking away that situation, and I'm not giving any punishment. They cannot share, they cannot play with them. And they can use, if you work with their kids with the I statements, we will find the solution. Like Atara said, I feel that way. I feel angry because he is not letting me use the red, because they have fighting like that. So what about if we find a solution between the three of us? So the three of the two of them and the parent has the same power. So we can get a solution. Okay, so you want to use the red? Now you can use the blue. And after 10 minutes, 5 minutes, depending on the parent what is said, then you're gonna change it. So we find a solution as a team. So you would discourage the misbehavior because you are not reinforcing the arguing or the fighting. You are teaching them experience to give power and listening skills, because now they can communicate themselves and they can communicate the emotion, and we have to be respectful in between of them. So as a summary, positive discipline discourages the behavior. It teaches students expectation as accountability, teaches what they do and what happens next have a natural and logical consequence. If you do this, this is gonna happen. So the power is on the children. You just like the moderator of the fighting. So in order to understand what is a behavior, we have to understand what is the function of the behavior. Every behavior has a function. There are 4 more important functions of the behavior. One is escape. The child behaves in order to avoid doing something he or she doesn't want to do. For example, attending a school virtual learning. I don't want to be there. Attention, the children will do whatever it has to make to get your attention. Access, the children will want to get something from another person, from the kitchen, from whatever you want. They just want to get something. Sensory, this is a tricky one. The sensory is a behavior that in a specific way because it feels good to them. This is a good example to explain. I'm going to tell you later examples. So what is a reinforcement? The reinforcement is a consequence applied that will encourage an appropriate behavior, but it could be reinforce a bad behavior if we are not following the strategies to stop a challenging behavior. So we have to be careful to not reinforce that behavior. So we have to reinforce the appropriate behavior. So what are some examples? When the function of the behavior is escaping, the child doesn't want to do anything. Let's do an example. The child throws the school materials on the ground. He doesn't want to work. So what is the only thing that he's communicating? I'm just gonna throw my things on the ground and wait for the adult to act. If you're gonna reinforce that behavior appropriately, you're gonna start giving the child prompts. Hey, you need to pick up those colors, or you need to pick up those papers. You think you can show the words. Do you think the text is very difficult to do? What about instead of doing 3 pages, you can do 1 page and then you can have a break? But this is the thing. You can get an arrangement with the children, but the child has to pick up the papers on the ground. Because if you don't do that, he escapes from the behavior. So you reinforce the bad behavior. If you make him or her to pick up the papers, you are reinforcing him that he has to communicate instead of throwing things to the ground. So we have to be very careful because sometimes parents say, you know what, go away, and I would do it. That kind of action, we are reinforcing the challenging behavior. So what is happening? The challenging behavior is going to start reinforced and it's going to happen all the time. So we have to get rid of the behavior and price the appropriate behavior. What about attention? Attention, all the kids, all the children, younger, and sometimes I can see some adults too, they want to get the attention of the adult, whatever they have to take. For example, a parent is talking to another adult by phone. The child starts screaming or throwing objects around the room. The parent turns around and tells the children to pick up the toy. How can we reinforce an appropriate behavior? You can prompt the children before you talk to by phone and say, you know what, I'm gonna be on the phone. I'm gonna talk to my friend. If you need something, just let me know or make a little palm on my hand or on my back. And as soon as I finish talking, I would give you whatever you want. What happened? That's wonderful if that happened that way. But the child's gonna start screaming and he's gonna try to get your attention, whatever it takes. The parent, if you notice that it's a functional behavior of attention, you have to ignore the behavior, not the child, just the behavior. And you don't have to look at him. You just have to say, remember, I told you that I'm gonna talk to you after I finish my call. You are gonna repeat it 2 times. And then you are gonna ignore the behavior and you are not gonna say anymore. You're gonna still talking by the phone. This is gonna be tricky because it's gonna take us some time to build that information in the children's mind, but it will decrease, I assure you. If you give the attention to say to your friend, oh, wait, let me talk to my kid, you are reinforcing him that if he screams or he throws things, he will get your attention. So every time that you are on the phone or every time that you are busy, he will do the same thing. And if you don't pay attention immediately, the behavior is going to start scaling. It's going to be heavier. So it's going to cry more. It's going to scream more because you reinforced that behavior before. What about access? Get something that he or she wants. Example, the child wants a toy during the class. Parents say, no, you cannot have a toy. The child start crying, screaming, or hitting, whatever is the challenging behavior. What are you gonna say? I always say you had to be proactive and you had to be patient and consistent during this time. You're gonna say, remember, we don't have toys during class. You will have it after the class or during your recess, but not during the class. If you already point that, if the child is old enough to repeat it, you have to tell him, what I told you, can you repeat what I say? If he repeats, that's like a contract with him. So during the class, if the child wants the toy, you are going to ignore the behavior of the toy and you're going to say, remember, we have to finish the class. You can say 2 times. If that doesn't work, the child is going to engage in a behavior. It's going to engage in attention. You have to be consistent and patient. Just wait for him. And as soon as possible, he's going to come back and he's going to learn that with the screaming and crying, he's not going to get what he wants. If you see the child crying or whining and you give him the toy, you are reinforcing that challenging behavior. So the next class, he will be crying and screaming for the toy because he knows that he will get it. He knows that. So he will get in the screaming if you want it for 1 hour. If that takes to give me the toy, he will do it or she will do it. So you have to be very consistent and you have to be very clear, as Tara said in the presentation. Sensory is a tricky function of behavior. And I say tricky because it's reinforced automatically. What that means, and the example I said, if you have a bite for a fly, the moment that you scratch, you're reinforcing it because you feel good, like you're scratching it. So you have to work like stretching, relief, itching, so the behavior is reinforced. So when we talk about children that have some sensory issues, like some children with autism, they have the hand flapping, is a sensory thing. The rock and forth or hit the head is something sensory. So this is very tricky because you need to work with a therapist that it will tell you what kind of thing it will replace that sensory input. For example, if the child is a hand flapping, one of the therapists reinforcement will see, oh, squeeze your hands. Show me how you squeeze your hands. Show me how you put your hands together. So you are giving the same input and you're giving the same sensory in something more appropriate. So we already know what is a behavior, what is a challenging behavior, what is positive discipline, what is punishment. So how we are going to help our children? There is an ABC data. It's an assessment tool used to gather information to help getting involved a behavior into a positive behavior. The ABC means the A is the antecedent, is what happening before the challenging behavior occurs. The behavior is the behavior, like the heart of the behavior, and the consequence, what will be the actions of the response to that behavior. So there is something very, like we have like a parent or like a teacher or like an aunt, because you're with your with kids. You have to be very observant what is happening before the behavior, because if we can identify the trigger that is getting the challenging behavior, we can be proactive and stop it from the step 1. So we have to be very observant if the trigger be internal, like frustration, anxiety, hungry, sad, depression. We don't know what's going on inside. Like we say, there are behaviors that we cannot see. If it's external, like conflict, that you have a fight with your mother, you have a fight with the parents, or the parents are fighting, he's having all that. So what is happening then? So what happened that give the behavior to get satisfied need, like the child is attempting to satisfy a goal. Maybe the parents are fighting, so the child is like, starts screaming. He's attempting to satisfy the attention of the parents, or to stop the fighting, but he doesn't know how to do it. It would be easier for us to say, stop fighting, please. But the children, sometimes they don't know how to express those feelings. And what is a consequence? What the parents do during that behavior, that will be a consequence. That I was said, we have to reinforce the positive behaviors, not the challenging behaviors. It's very important, because if we reinforce the challenging behaviors, the behavior will never disappear. It will get worse. So this is an example of each one. The sensory is very tricky. That's why I say it's just like a fly, and it has to work with something different. For example, the child was given a bin with parts to assemble. The behavior, he threw the bins onto the floor. The consequence, the teacher said, time out, pick up the pieces after time out. So that means, did you know that you give the bins and the child was like, I don't want to work. I just like be like this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. You know that antecedent is that he wants to escape because he doesn't want to work. So we can do, like I said before, you can lower demands. Maybe you can do, instead of building a car, you can just make the wheels. But after the timeout, because it was a not appropriate behavior to throw things on the floor, you had to pick them up, and then you can have a timeout. You can have a special time that you have to calm your body and then come back to the activity. And the axis, the child is hungry, but he doesn't know how to communicate it. So the student starts screaming and kicking the mother because she's in the kitchen. So the mother has to block the behavior because she doesn't want to be kicked. But if she turns around and say the child, stop kicking, you are giving reinforce to the behavior. So the child will get the attention in the morning. He wants the attention even though it's positive or negative. I don't care. So if you turn around and give that attention, you are reinforcing that behavior. So you have to do is say with calm voice, patient, and say, you know what? If you need something, you have to use your words, but don't look at him, and you continue with your activity. And he's like, ah! But you have to model. If you have to be calm, use nice words. If you want an apple, you have to say, may I have an apple, please? Of course, there are kids that are not gonna say all that words, but can you say just apple, please? And then you say, oh, good, you asked it. Yay. And you make a big deal because we want to reinforce that he used or she used the words and not the kicking. The attention is, I think, is the most important one. The mother is cooking, the child stands front to and crying. Prompt the kid, ignore the behavior, redirect, and pick up. So we have to, like Tara said, we have to have a communication with both of them are on the same level. So note, all the information is based on general behaviors in children. Every child is different and unique. Parents are the expert of their own child. Parents should find a technique that will address behaviors appropriately. Note, the function of the behaviors does not change. So we have to be clear that there's just 4 functions of behavior. And sometimes in one occasion or in one behavior, it can be 2 or 3 functions at the same time. So you, as a parent, you have to, which one do you want to reinforce and which one you want to ignore? If you're working on your children that it has to use their words, I'm gonna ignore the other functions, but I'm gonna reinforce the one that I want to work. Another thing that I was saying before, a behavior is like a roller coaster. It's the car of the roller coaster. The child sit down on the first line. The parents always, I can say always, sit down on the other one, on the back of the child. If we are in a roller coaster, we will never catch him up during a tantrum. He will always be on the top and we always gonna beat down him. So if we are like behind him, we are reinforcing the tantrum. So the tantrum is gonna escalate. The best option is to just wait on the bottom and wait for him to calm down. Don't use words, just say you need to calm down. I'm here for you. When you are ready, we can talk. maybe the first 1-2 weeks, the behavior is gonna be, the tantrum is gonna be like, whew, up. But when he noticed or she noticed that it's not working, the child's gonna come back to you. And then it's gonna start using the words, but you have to teach them how to communicate. So we already know about behaviors. So what happened when we have 2 kids at home that they are fighting to get your attention? That's the first function of behavior that happen with the brothers and sisters or siblings at home. So why do we keep our kids from each other's throats? We're all home all the time. So we know that the life is hard enough in ordinary times like I put here. The children are still learning basic skills to get their needs met. Sometimes they cannot communicate. They don't know how to communicate. They are tired, but they don't know how to do it. And the brother is just bothering. So it's explode. It's natural to snap and shout threats to the kids like, hey, stop fighting. But the trauma will then up escalating all the time because we are not addressing those behaviors properly. We have to talk to them and make it understand that they can talk and ask for something like, I want this, but he's not listening. So the parent can be there to moderate that. Punishment, we know that it doesn't work. It doesn't address emotion and needs. The misbehavior will be reinforced immediately if we do a punishment to them. There are 5 basic structured habits to help addressing emotions, meet their needs, and heal severely. One is ensure personal space. Each child, even the adults, they need a downtown place, a place when you can be by yourself, maybe listen music, maybe, well, like your parents take a shower. The kids need a space. So you can tell him or address it like, if you want to be by yourself, just let me know and I will help you. And I will talk to your brother about it. Use your words. The parent's gonna be there. If they cannot communicate, you're gonna model them how to communicate appropriately. Each of them will have an option for a space. So you're gonna give the children the power to choose their own place. So they will have like, oh, I have the power. I want that corner, for example. So you will give it that. If there is a lot of noise in the room, you can provide headphones. I'm not happy with headphones because you are allowing them to use whatever they want, and I don't like that. So maybe you can make rules and say, maybe when you are only on your downtown place, you can use them, but later you have to put it on the side, for example. Social isolation, like we said, many of our children are not having and are not developing social skills right now. They are just in front of the screen. So they don't know how to communicate with their new students, with their new friends. So they need that interaction. We can use, maybe you can talk with the parents, say, maybe we can do a Zoom time with the friends and they can talk, or they can play, or they can do a kind of communication. I saw one time that was say, oh, let's do, I don't know, a car with paper. And both of them were working on building a car with paper, and both of them were in the Zoom and they were interaction, they were talking about it. Balance individual needs. We have to show respect for each of them, even for you too. You have to respect if one of them say, I want to play, like for my kids, I want to play with Andrea, but Andrea is she's by herself, so you need to respect that time. So in order to make those happen, it's like Tara said, you have to create a routine. Maybe we can do, just after eating, we are going to have our quiet time, everybody, right? So make them be flexible. We can change during the day. We have to be flexible and creative at the same time. If one of the children doesn't want the downtown place, maybe you can play with that, with the girl, and the boy is getting the downtown space. So social skills, we have to avoid competence, avoid comparing it, no fairer on one kid. So we had to be very fair, and sometimes it's very difficult because one of them are more challenging than the other one. So we have to make it work like a family. Every family is different. So reaffirm family rules, Be calm, flexible, express feelings, all of them. You can express feelings, be active together, talk about pandemic, all emotions are important, and avoid stress. Just talk like a family. Thank you. I'm gonna stop sharing.
Thanks, Pilar.
Thank you, Pilar.
Oh, I'm so dim. Let me turn on the light. Sorry.
Those are some really practical tips. And I am going to share from the side of student mental health, how you as a parent can take care of yourself so that implementing what Tara and Pilar have been talking about can feel a lot easier. And let me share my screen and get this going. So I'm going to be talking about stress in general, stress management, as well as introduce a skill called self-compassion, because these really useful, healthy means of parenting that Tara and Pilar have been talking about do require some patience and emotional energy. It's a lot easier to, have that active listening time like Tara was talking about when you yourself are not super stressed, and it's easier to wait out some of those behaviors like Pilar was talking about, like to wait for that roller coaster to keep coming down when you're not already at your stress limit. So I want to validate that going forward, and just also to validate stress isn't stress is a normal part of life. It seems on the surface like having a stress-free life would be amazing, especially right now when we're completely steeped in stress in 2020. But if you stopped and thought about it, a totally stress-free life probably wouldn't be what we want. If you wanted a completely stress-free life, you probably wouldn't go get your degree. You probably wouldn't pursue parenting. There's just stress that is inherently involved in a lot of worthwhile parts of life. It's part of how we grow and we get the life we want. So being stressed itself is not a negative thing on its own. It is not a red flag. But what we're going to talk about today is when stress gets too high. So there's this chart here that I like to use that shows how when we're experiencing an optimal level of stress, something that's manageable and in this middle zone, we can feel motivated, productive, we can feel in the flow, we can feel proactive in really helpful ways. And so that level of stress is really good for our performance and good for our momentum. If you have really low stress, kind of like I was talking about, you might not ever go after things that you want, or you might not ever be proactive enough to, take your kids to the doctor when you're concerned about them. There's a level of stress that's too low for that optimal level that we need in life. But there is also stress that is too high. It interferes with our ability to concentrate, to regulate our own emotions. It might interfere with so many aspects of our functioning. And that's what I want to talk about today. What do we do when our stress is in this high zone? Which I think for most of us in 2020, we've been living in that high zone. We've been dealing with so many stressors that are not things that we were previously prepared for. And so here's some signs of when your stress level has gone to that unhelpful zone. You might feel like you're overthinking a lot. Maybe you're avoiding tasks or people that normally wouldn't be overwhelming to you. You may be engaging in unhelpful coping for a quick stress relief, doing things that might catch up with you later. It also can lower immune system, so you might find yourself feeling like you're getting colds a lot more easily. You might feel more tired, more easily frustrated, more irritable, and have difficulty focusing. And so you can see how all of these things would interact and interfere with your role of being a parent, because it would take away from your energy and your emotional space to process things with your children. These things also interfere with your ability to be successful as a student. And so you can feel trapped easily in this cycle of being so stressed that it's hard to cope, and then that creates more stress. And it might feel like you can't quite get off of the roller coaster. And so something that's helpful to do is focus on positive coping. There are a lot of stressors in our lives that we cannot totally control, a lot of systemic factors and things going on in our world right now that we can't directly address. But there are things that we can do for ourselves. And the first one is just to monitor your stress level, check in with yourself. Notice how high, if you picture that chart in your mind, how high am I getting right now? And seeing throughout the day if you can bring yourself back down a bit, so that if something comes up with your kids or if something comes up at school, you're not going to get pushed to your limit of stress. Focus on what adaptations you can change, what are in your control to get your stress level back down. Maybe it is declaring that everyone's going to have some alone time right now, or we need some quiet time in the house. Maybe it's asking for an extension on an assignment. You want to focus on things that you can tweak to bring your stress level down so that you're not constantly feeling the pressure to live in that high stress zone. We want to engage in coping that has a long-term positive impact, and I think that's important. Think about if something is going to catch up with you later. So a perfect example is you feel so overwhelmed by this paper you have to write that you just don't do anything with it for a couple days. You're relieving the stress in the short term, but it's gonna really skyrocket your stress a couple days later. So that is coping, but it's not positive coping because it's not helping you in the long run. And the reason you want to be attentive to this is that stress is contagious. If you're consistently monitoring your stress and trying to do what you can to bring it down in little ways, you're also going to be helping your children, because you'll have more of a capacity to help them de-stress, to help them identify when they're feeling overwhelmed. And you're going to almost reverse that cycle where then everyone is feeling a little less stressed. You'll have more energy to deal with what's coming up in life. And the stress will continue to go down. So something that I want to offer, because I know that it can feel hard to de-stress as a student, as a parent, when you have so many obligations in your life. Having someone come in and tell you, just de-stress, might feel really impractical and maybe even frustrating, because we've kind of been conditioned to think of de-stressing as like big vacations, or having a whole day to yourself, or taking a really long bubble bath in a bathroom from a catalog. It might just seem like something that's out of reach, but I want to introduce self-compassion today as a way to really learn how to offer yourself some comfort and some de-stressing in the moment, totally internally. This doesn't cost any money. It takes very little time. It's just a way of shifting your mindset so that you internally are not escalating the stress that you experience. So the idea of self-compassion is to, like it says, be compassionate to yourself. That might sound a little bit cheesy or strange, but the idea is that by treating yourself like a friend would treat you, rather than treating yourself like your own harshest critic, you can manage your own emotions more effectively. And so the idea here is to shift your internal narrative And in a way, kind of be the comforting, encouraging person to yourself that you're trying to be for your children. So self-compassion is an idea that was researched by Dr. Kristen Neff, and we have that resource for everyone in our handout for today, but it has 3 components. So the first is to offer yourself kindness. This is going to look like changing how you speak to yourself. So if you were really frustrated because you wanted to get dinner and homework done by a certain time and it's not happening, instead of being really hard on yourself, you want to see how you can offer yourself kindness in your inner monologue by saying like, wow, you're doing the best you can. Just thinking, what would a kind friend say to me at this point, and trying to interrupt those moments where you're being really hard on yourself. And you might think that that's just making it so that you're always maybe letting yourself off the hook, or you're never going to be motivated if you have that mindset. But it's actually the opposite. Self-compassion can make you feel more energized and more motivated and regulated to move through the world. And one reason for that is it's not self-pity. It's actually a way that you're connecting to common humanity. So not only would you say, you know what, I'm doing the best I can tonight, you would connect to other people in that circumstance by saying, I bet I'm not the only parent who has felt this way. I bet I'm not the only parent who's struggling tonight at this moment. I'm not alone in feeling overwhelmed. And that final piece of self-compassion is the mindfulness of the present moment. So to acknowledge, what is it that I'm feeling right now? I'm feeling overwhelmed, or I'm feeling hurt by what my kid just said to me. You want to really be aware of what the emotion is that you're feeling without trying to push it out of the way right away, or minimize it or explain it. And that also doesn't mean making it a bigger deal than it is. Similar to how you can have conversations with your children where you're active listening and acknowledging their emotions, you're doing the same for yourself internally. And that's what self-compassion as a mindset is. And so what does this look like in practice? How do you take little steps towards having a self-compassionate mindset in life? First of all, like I said, you want to reframe any critical thoughts about yourself as if you were talking to a friend. And some people even find it helpful to journal or write a letter as if someone they cared about was in the same situation as them, and see how different your response is. Another thing is just to give yourself permission to be kind to yourself. As students and as parents, you can constantly be bombarded with a lot of expectations from different people in your life. And giving yourself permission to slow down and be kind to yourself can be so powerful. And reminding yourself that this is not the same as self-pity. This is not quote unquote letting yourself off the hook. This is offering yourself the same attitude that you give to everyone else in your life, and it will result in more emotional strength and energy. There's a 3-step reflection that you can do if you want something that feels more formatted to hold on to when you want to have a self-compassionate moment. The first is you acknowledge a feeling, and you just take note of that feeling in yourself of saying, I am overwhelmed. I'm going to be honest about how I'm feeling. I'm feeling angry at my child right now. Let me acknowledge that feeling. And then, like I said, you tap into the common humanity. I bet I'm not the only parent who has felt overwhelmed by their child. I bet I'm not the only student parent who struggles to to juggle all their responsibilities. And then once you've done those two things, you tap into what it is that you need. So by connecting to the idea that others have the same problems and being kind to yourself, you might be able to identify what it is that you need in the moment. What I need to offer myself right now is patience. What I need right now is a break. Maybe what I need right now is some support from other people in my life. And that's a way of practicing self-compassion. It starts with the feeling and then moves to connection with others and what you need. And that's why it's going to bring that stress level down. And a final thing I want to talk about, which is a practical way of practicing self-compassion, it's called self-soothing touch. So something that we might do a lot with children is offer them soothing touch. You give them a little back rub or rub on their arms. We recognize that children need touch sometimes to regulate their emotions when they can't quite use like logic or words to bring their emotions down. And adults are the same in a way too. We feel very soothed by touch sometimes. And so self-soothing touch can just be things you think of that you might do that are soothing to a kid, like rubbing your own arms for a bit. Putting your hands on your face like this and cupping your face for a couple moments. That can be really soothing. Paying attention to your breathing, just like you might try to slow down your child's breathing when they're feeling worked up. Or you can do what's called a strength pose. So you have strength in a fist and softness in a hand, and you put those over your heart. And those can be really a way of calming yourself down physically too. And the links that I'm going to give, or that are already in the handout, they link you to more examples of self-soothing touch from Dr. Kristen Neff, more kind of guided videos or meditations on self-compassion, as well as some guided meditations on breathing exercises or other things that might bring your stress level down. Because what I just really want to emphasize today is, parents, especially student parents, are dealing with so many layers of stress, and the role of parenthood really requires you to also be the receptacle of a lot of emotion and stress that your kids are directing at you to try to help them make sense of, which has only been heightened by the fact that we're together all the time and we're in a pandemic and we're in a moment of uncertainty. And so practicing self-compassion, monitoring your stress level, these are things that can be really beneficial to you and your family. So I hope that you take advantage of some of those resources that we've linked you to as well. And I also want to plug CAPS. I'm a counselor here at CAPS, and we exist for the moments when stress is really superseding our ability to cope. We can, provide tools and tips in workshops like this, but sometimes you just need someone to come alongside you and help support you, and that's what CAPS is for. So before we move to questions and wrapping up, I just want to note that our contact info is here. You can call during business hours to make an appointment or talk to an on-call counselor at any time. And we have a variety of services. We have a multidisciplinary staff who works with us, and we have a lot of different options for support, individual, group spaces, crisis, as well as getting you connected to other people in the community or other workshop opportunities. And so with that, I'm going to wrap up my side of the presentation and join the group again. But thanks for letting me share about stress and self-compassion this evening.
Thank you so much, Emily. And going on with that, we're going to add some tips on how to prevent Zoom burnout, as well as helping your students go through learning the distance learning.
Great. I feel like both sides of the equation can benefit from that.
Absolutely. So these are some distance learning tips, and these tips are provided by the Distance Learning Playbook for Parents. This is a book that is available at bookstores and online. They gave 8 really strong tips. The first tip being maintaining the routine. That routine is popping up a lot in our presentation today. Routines for children help to ground them and stable them. Your teachers at the school will create a routine. If you haven't already noticed, each teacher will have a daily routine that the children will go through. It is our job as parents to maintain those routines, including homework time, as well as maintaining, making sure the children are up and ready, dressed for school, not in PJs, to help them keep on task and keep them to help them keep having to help them to adjust back into regular school once we're at that point. The other tip is to create a learning environment. If you haven't already done so, please create a learning environment, making sure that their workspace is the same workspace. Again, that's going hand in hand in that routine. Making sure the workspace is clean, where they can have all their supplies available to them within a hands grab. Being able to provide those breaks. The teachers should be able to provide those breaks, minute breaks to 5-minute breaks, screen breaks, and it is up to us as parents to make sure that anything that they need in order to continue through the day is available to them. Establish ground rules, making sure one of the rules that I have is no screen time outside of school, or no screen time, no cell phones, no Nintendo, none of that while they're at Zoom school. This helps them to know that this is the time to focus. Those other things are not. And then the other thing is, if you're capable of leaving that space as their Zoom school space, only use that area for their Zoom school space. Understand what the teacher's expectations are. These teachers will more than likely make you aware of what their expectations are, whether they want them dressed and ready to go every day, whether they want no pets in the viewing vicinity. You know, but it is up to us as parents to make sure that we communicate to these teachers and have them give us what we need in order to provide what they need. Zoom etiquette: show up on time, find a quiet place that making that space. No siblings, pets, parents, or televisions as a distraction. Teaching our children how to present respect, to give respect, and also get respect in return in both speaking, writing, and appearance. Making sure your child is staying on mute unless they need to unmute, and to use the raise hand feature, or some of us even use it to raise their hand in class. And also that the video needs to remain on to help them to focus, and that eye contact should be made, as well as try to keep your child from eating or chewing gum and drinking in front of the camera, unless it's water, if your teacher has that expectation. Sleep is so important to your child, and some parents don't realize that there are sleep recommendations. According to the CDC, our children need, depending on their age, between 11 to 10 hours a day. Your teenagers, they need 8 to 10 hours a day. They need to be able to sleep. While your child is in their sleep cycle, this is what is causing their body to grow and the mind to regenerate itself. This is helping them to de-stress every day. So please try to encourage your child to sleep. Next, monitor your screen time. Your children are already on the screen so many hours during their Zoom school. Try to limit the amount of extracurricular screen time that they have. Encourage outside play. Outside play, when you encourage outside play, you're helping them to de-stress. Play helps them to regulate themselves. It also, by minimizing the screen time that the extracurricular screen time, you're minimizing the blue light exposure, and which could harm their eyes. If this is not possible, if they are involved in other classes, look into purchasing some non-prescription blue light blocking glasses to prevent eye strain. Again, communication. Communication is a key with children. They need it, you need it. Find out what the best way to communicate with your child is. As Pilar said, we are the ones that know our children. If we know that our children need a certain type of communication, nonverbal communication, a hug communication, you are the one that knows. And if you need help in learning how to communicate with your child, there are resources as well as your child's teacher to help you. And last but not least, Emily, self-care is so important for us as parents. If you are not good on your inside, you cannot be good for your child. You are teaching them self-care. If your parents never taught you self-care, this might be a hard thing to be able to learn. We have resources in our little flyer that will be emailed to you, and if we could figure out putting it in the chat, it'll be available to you. Self-care helps to maintain a positive family relation. If you're stressed, you're going to show it, you're going to feel that, and your child is going to feel it. If they feel it, guess what? That's where the misbehaviors happen. That's where the misguided actions happen. Your child feeds off your energy as well as you feeding off their energy. If you can maintain your self-care, taking your moments to breathe, learning to breathe, doing your self-touches, you're going to be so much better for your child.